Welcome to the Brand Boss Show, empowering you to rock your brand like a boss. This show exists to share all the tools, tips, and secrets you need to maximize the impact of your brand.
Welcome back, Brand Boss. This week, I am so excited and honored to be joined by my dear friend, client, and just a boss in her own right, Helen Graham of Crown Maid. Helen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Rachel. Oh my goodness. It's such a pleasure to see you again and be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So why don't you introduce yourself to the Brand Boss community a little bit? Obviously, you are no stranger here. You've been part of the Brand Boss community for a long time. But why don't you just share a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your story? Yeah, whatever you would like to share to introduce yourself before we dive into our conversation today.
Sure. Yeah. So as you know now, my name is Helen and I am the CEO and founder of Crown Maid. But really at the root of it, I'm a serial creative, like crazy kind of builder of sorts, and just kind of get stuck into building things and creating experiences and doing all the things like that. I'm based out of Seattle at the moment, but as you can probably hear, I have a fun accent. So originally from England, and I just enjoy sharing experiences and learning from one another. So I'm thrilled to be here today with you guys.
That's awesome. Well, why don't you share, speaking of being a serial creative, right? And you are so talented in so many ways. Why don't you share a little bit about the backstory of Crown Maid for anybody who's not familiar?
Yeah, it's quite a fun story. And we talk about, and we hear people say that they turn their passion into something of a business or a product. And I always saw that in the digital space, people using their place of expertise or breakthroughs that they had, and they would turn it into a business and bring that to other people. And I never saw physical products in my line of sight at all. But really what came about was I was starting to be creative, like tangibly, like what you think of, like paintbrush and paint, and I was creating different things. And I started off actually doing a method called paint pouring, which is where you take really runny paint and you throw it onto a canvas and whatever happens type thing. And it really gave this busy mom, stay-at-home mom, these little windows of time where I didn't have to overthink. I didn't have to think about what I was going to make, and I could have quick wins in creating, and just started pouring all the paint everywhere. Now, what ended up happening was I would sort of start to share it on Instagram, and I would find other people doing the same thing. And I'm like, so I'm getting more inspired. And then I'm seeing them pour it on tiles, like ceramic tiles. So I'm like, oh, I can actually make something practical with this. Like, I'm a very practical person. So I love the fact that I can make something and it be useful. And so I would pour the paint on the coasters, and then I would see people finishing them with resin. And I was like, what is resin? What is this thing that makes it look like glass that you can pour and it cures and it's so shiny and stuff? And so then I started doing that on these coasters. And I remember saying to a friend of mine, this is great and everything, but it's just not going to pay the bills. Like there's only so much time and energy I can put into making these tile coasters, and they were fun and everything, but I knew that I had something really big inside that I needed to uncover and figure out. And I honestly thought coasters were not going to be the thing. And I literally said that out loud. So when I say this next bit, you're going to laugh. So, I'm pouring the resin, and then I, at the same time, that need for more and that longing for kind of like something that to build that was, different and big and allowed me to still be home and stuff, led me into the Amazon FBA space. And so I'm like, oh, this is great. I can make money from home and I can sell products online, and they can drive all the traffic, and we can just, sit back and watch the money roll in, right? Like it's like the passive income dream was pitched. And I'm going through this and I'm thinking, wow, this is great and everything, but I really want to sell something that I'm passionate about. I really want to sell something that's true to me, because if I wouldn't buy it, then I'm not going to be able to sell it. Like I just can't do that. And so I was like, well, maybe I could sell something to do with the resin and what was happening. So it was like so much stuff happening at once. what was happening too is I was seeing these people make these resin coasters, like not just pouring them on tiles, but they were building like silicone caulking dams to make these coaster pieces where you could pop out the resin out of the silicone. And I'm like, oh, so I wonder if there's a mold shaped in this geode shape, which is like this organic rock kind of format. And I couldn't find it. Or if I could, it was like somebody was selling them for like $25 for like one on Etsy, like because they handmade it, which I love that. And there's definitely space for that. But I was like, I need to make 4. I need to make them at a time because my time, like I'm trying to make this efficient, right? If I'm going to make coasters and sell, I need to make 4 at once. I need to make them a set and I need to do all this. And so it just wasn't there. So I thought, oh, I wonder if this could be my product. And so really, it came down to hand drawing out these shapes, getting somebody to design them, having these silicone molds manufactured. And so Crown Maid, where it started as like just my art account and like, here's just kind of like, if you want to buy a painting, I guess you can buy a painting type thing, turned into now this brand of silicone molds for resin, and other artists are using them to create coasters. And now I have other things and future molds in mind for it. But it was just one of those like moments in time where you just, everything kind of lined into, and I was like, I didn't see that coming. I can make money selling coasters. Like, so yeah, that was kind of a backstory around Crown Maid.
I love that story so much. And I think it's so cool how you were just saying that at the right time, everything just came together.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that is something that I have seen in my own life and something that I've heard from so many fellow entrepreneurs over and over and over. Like you said, you have this thing that you're already doing because you love it, right? This thing that you're passionate about, or this, knowledge that you have to share with the world, or like you said, excuse me, sorry, that, you didn't see anybody putting out these molds. Like that didn't exist. And I also love the part of the story when you said, I can't make money with coasters, right? And I think that so many times the opportunities that are presented to us, sometimes we miss because we disqualify ourselves from them, or we say, oh, well, that couldn't possibly work. What would you say to that, just real quick before we go on?
Yeah, I think I really just learned that, like, never say never. And I think that, things in life, they love to, as much we want to lean into what's right, it loves to prove us wrong too. Life loves to prove us wrong. And I think that it's just so important to keep an open mind. Like, I am super grateful for being corrected in that, because it created something that I never knew that I needed. And I just think that if I'd have looked a little deeper, or I'd have thought a little bit more creatively, one thing that definitely opened up in this whole journey, and just even really getting to know kind of the Amazon space, it really opened my eyes to just how big the world is, like just how much is out there. And I think, we can have things feel very small, wrapped up in our own little world. I was a stay-at-home mom, I still am stay-at-home mom, work from home mom. I don't know what to call it now. Like, everyone works from home now, so everyone's technically like work from home.
It's true.
But it's, my world had become pretty small, and I think that I hadn't really like thought about what else there could be outside of that. And just learning about the Amazon process in a whole, just seeing how many people actually searched for something, I'm like, wait a minute, like there are this many people over this period of time typing in these words, like, are you serious? And I'll never forget, I almost like needed to see it for my own eyes. And so while I was going through the training, I would post books for sale that I had lying around the house. And I remember listing some books. I mean, they weren't good. Like, they were old books. I'm like, who, and no kidding, like one sold the next day. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, somebody actually found this book and bought it. There's somebody who was looking for this book and actually bought it. And I remember it was like, in that moment, it was just like, see, and I'll never forget that feeling, because it was like, oh, I can do this. There's something about selling something online for the first time. I'm sure your listeners have experienced this too, or yourself. When you sell something online, that I was like, oh, it works. I don't know why I didn't think that it didn't, but anyway, that was just kind of a fun experience with that.
It's so true. And, I've experienced that as well. And there is something about this. Okay, I know it works for other people, but then when it happens for you, you're like, oh, this works. This does
Right.
work for me. I can make money online. I can do this, or whatever it is, whatever your business is, whenever I feel like, we all remember probably our first sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, somebody does want to buy this, and they will pay me for this, or whatever it is. And I love how you touched on this idea of scarcity versus abundance,
Mm-hmm.
and how you said that your world had become really small. But then as you started to investigate, you realized just how big the world is and how full of possibility it is. And I think that sometimes as business owners, whenever we get into a situation, maybe it's an idea that we have, right? Maybe we're ready to launch something new. Maybe you're in a rough spot in your business. I think there's all kinds of different situations where this little lie of scarcity likes to rear its ugly head, right? And so we start telling ourselves, well, I don't know if that would work. Well, I don't know if anybody would really be interested in that. Well, I don't know if anybody would pay that. Well, I don't know if, and the reality is that the world is as full of opportunity and possibility as we are willing to look for it, right? And to see with eyes of possibility, not eyes of lack. And it was as you stepped into that place of, let me just see, let me
Mm-hmm.
just explore this, right? I think that that's something too, is that we don't want to launch something until it's ready.
Right.
And there's something to be said for that, right? But
Yes.
sometimes you also just have to investigate. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just see. Let's just see
Yeah.
what there is, and then, like you said, you discovered, oh my goodness, this many people are searching for this exact thing in this period of time. Here's this whole opportunity I never would have even thought of.
Totally. I'll never forget, it's like the first product I launched, so I didn't really know kind of what to expect. And I didn't even realize that my order had arrived, like my inventory had arrived at Amazon. I think I woke up to an email saying that they checked it in, but then I also checked my Amazon seller app, and I had sold like 4 by the time I woke up. And I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't even like I didn't know it automatically like turned the listing on. Like, I know stuff now, but it was just kind of I'm like, wait, these things have been selling and I've not been doing anything. Like, I'm not and so it really, like, it was such a beautiful moment. And it's very different market now. The market matured a lot, but I'm like, okay, now we're switching to long game mode, and like, who can stick out the longest, but it was just such a beautiful moment of like, there are other people who see value in this too, because there was always that kind of question of, I know I really want this and I really need to have this, and to try it and stuff, but I didn't know enough about my audience at the time. I hadn't really gotten to know them very well, and I just was like, well, I hope other people see this as useful and valuable too. And they really did. I mean, we sold through 500 units in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's incredible.
I spent all of 2020 trying to stay in stock amongst of COVID, amongst of like all the shipping delays and all the craziness and stuff like that. And so it was like, well, there you go. That's how big it is. Got it. Okay. Let's keep going.
That's incredible. All from something that you didn't think you could make money
Mm.
off of.
Yeah, totally.
It's such a classic entrepreneur story to me.
Yes. The story I didn't know I needed.
I love that. I think that life is full of those stories we didn't know we needed, right? And when we I'm going to say something that's going to feel like touchy feely, but I don't mean it to sound like that. I think whenever we open our minds as well as our hearts to those is when we get to experience them.
It's true. Yeah, that's true. You can totally go through something and think it was just all your head knowledge that figured it out, and I think there's a true connection when you can tie it into something meaningful and, and produce something on purpose. And it kind of does touch something I'm kind of passionate about, that now that I've been in this space for a while and I'm kind of seeing how things are done and stuff, I'm thinking, we really could do with more purposeful products out there, and we really could do with more like intentional creation and development of things versus just finding 5 of the same stuff and everybody just trying to sell the same product. I mean, and that's the name of the game for some people on Amazon, but I just can't help but think that, customers deserve more, and the consumers deserve like a little bit more ingenuity and a little bit more creativity on some things. And I think I believe it's something that helps Crown Maid set apart, and that truly creates something different and special for its customers and through that for the artists and that use them, because I'm thinking differently in that space. And so, yeah, I 100% agree with you there. And to reiterate something you said earlier about, sometimes we want it all figured out, and we like to, think that it's all perfect and stuff before we step out to things. And this quote has, really lodged itself in me, and I forget who said it now. So just, like putting it out there, but it said, if not embarrassed by how you started, then you started too late. And I was like, that just sticks with me so much, because I mean, the reason why I came to you guys at Brand Boss Studio was for packaging. And, if I think about like my first packaging, I am so embarrassed about it, but it was like, just a plain white box with a label on it, but it's what I needed to just get going and to make sure it was viable, make sure there was life on this thing. And then I could sort of establish it more. So I often think about that. Yeah, I'm really glad that I didn't try and figure it all out and, put more structure around it. And I just started.
Yeah, I love, I think it was our friend Julia Winston that said, sometimes it's awkward before it gets elegant.
That's good.
And that's true. It's just so true. And, you could be still trying to perfect your perfect mold, and you could still be trying to perfect all of these things. And meanwhile, one of the things that I love about you is your genuine heart for the people that you serve. Like you said, that does set Crown Maid apart. And you are truly made for the resin makers, through the identity statement that we crafted together. It's really who you are. And I always love seeing the work that you post, that you share of the artists who use your molds. And just, it never ceases to amaze me, the incredible creativity of what they are making with these molds,
Yeah. It really is nothing. It's like, the molds are like the blank canvas for the artists. It's like I make canvases, like essentially I make blank canvases. And I remember, waking up and finding the mentions on Instagram and thinking, oh my goodness, I can't believe, look what they made. And I'd be running around showing my husband and like, can you believe this? Like, I am more than happy not to be the best at this, like I am no way trying to be kind of the expert, so to speak, in, all things creativity. And I love that the products can lend itself for the artist to have full control over that and just govern that space for themselves, and that the molds are just purely the vessel for that creativity. And I realized just this past year, and just doing some reflecting over like Crown Maid and the brand and just kind of what it is that I'm doing. And it really was like this aha moment of, Crown Maid is about excellence, and it's not about being the expert. It's like, and it just really kind of lifted a burden that I felt like I had to be like the go-to kind of also expert and everything. But it was really just more about, no, actually, like you can just create an excellent space with excellent behind your products, and in an excellence, serve and do customer service and show up and and create that environment is really something that holds value to me, and it just kind of helped me differentiate between the two, because the unnecessary pressure, to have all the answers.
Yeah.
But there are things that just happen, and it's like, okay, well, now we know, and if I come across the answer, I'll let you know. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I love that too. I think I forget who it was who said it. I think it might have been Russell Brunson in Expert Secrets, but a fourth grader is the expert to a first grader, right? And sometimes I think that we can put pressure on ourselves, like you were saying, to be the expert, to have it all figured out. But the reality is, there is already somebody who needs what you know, who needs what you
right.
have to offer, right? And then for you, you are creating, like you said, these beautiful blank canvases, these opportunities of excellence to be platforms for the creativity of others, which I just think is so beautiful, because everything that Crown Maid does is about championing the resin makers that Crown Maid is made for.
Right. Yeah.
So speaking of excellence, let's transition for a minute and just talk about, I love how you kept using that word experiences, because that's a word that I also love, as you know. And it really is about the experience that someone has with your company. That at the end of the day is your brand. That's what you're
Yeah.
known for. And so for a product-based business, there are some very key ways to have that kind of experience for your customers. And especially in your case, because they're finding you, or were, initially on Amazon primarily. And so the very first actual interaction that they have with Crown Maid as a company comes after they place that order.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to that for a minute?
Yeah. And it's quite interesting, because some things that I've learned, just really holding that place of value for that, and those touch points is really kind of like super important for brand building, as you know, right? And you probably teach on here. And so one thing that I quickly realized is with Amazon is that people don't realize they're actually buying from somebody else, not Amazon, and unfortunately platforms like that, they tie our hands, in how much we can interact and speak, and what we can send them and not, and point them to. And so it really is so dependent on your packaging. I found was like the key thing to like show people that this is not just some blank random product on Amazon, so to speak. And so it's like you're trying to educate the customer by who they're buying from, in all these different ways. And so now we're on Etsy, and I have the Shopify store front as well, and just trying to get them all working together. And so a big thing that I recently transitioned to, purely based on this too, was shipping. Was a huge change that I made just recently. Now Amazon handles all the Amazon stuff, and I'm not planning on delving into that area right now. However, Etsy and Shopify, I had started to use another third-party fulfillment place where I'm like, it works the same as Amazon. I'm not having to manually ship products, and they will do their job for the Etsy and the Shopify orders. But what quickly became apparent was that orders, if people placed a multiple item order, it would be shipped in 2 different boxes. It would arrive at 2 different times. And so my customer service went through the roof, because people were like, where's the rest of my order? Like, where is it? Is there a mistake? And blah, blah, blah. And or things would get delayed, and things would be late out. And I'm like, this is not the standard that I want Crown Maid to be known for. This is not a great customer experience. And as a brand, it's like, I want there to be that personal, like, kind of, piece towards that too. And so I decided to pull all that stuff back and take it on in-house. And because it matters to me that, if I ordered like 3 items, or I ordered like more than that, I would want them all to order, like come in all at the same time. If I spent over $100 with a, you know, on a website somewhere, I would want all that stuff at one point. So I knew that like I got everything that I paid for. And then
My apologies.
oh,
I couldn't hear what you said.
sorry about that. Siri needs quiet. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Anyway,
Eavesdropping on our conversation.
Siri just needs to know where place. Anyway. And so for just the sake of customers' experience, and because it matters to me, you know, what they're experiencing on the other end. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. If, you know, if I'm wanting to get more creative on what I'm offering, I need to do this in-house and figure out a way to do it. Because, and then really it was about the touch points. I want them to know that like somebody actually put this together in a world which everything is so automated and so kind of like distant from human touch. It seems that it mattered to me that it's like, no, people actually need to know that like somebody took the time and the effort. Like I put blood, sweat and tears into every product, you know, and so it means a lot to me that people would see that too at the same time.
And how would you say your emphasis on those touch points, which I know that you definitely have? So when we talked about it awkward, it being awkward before it gets elegant.
Mm.
When you started to incorporate that in your packaging, in the brand experience of this physical product, what kind of feedback did you get from customers about that? How did you see that impact your business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think definitely people were able to find me off of Amazon, you know, and that definitely helped. And I think I got a lot more unboxing videos and different things like that, which was super fun. You know, they're always super excited when they get their molds in the mail, and it gives me great joy to kind of watch them enjoy just all the effort that was put into those pieces as well. And so as for how many people like end up on the YouTube, I'm not sure yet, you know, and you know, there's like tracking lessons and everything, but I think a good solid design like what you guys have been able to create for Crown Maid has really lent itself for versatility, and it's been such a great universal piece that now has just lent itself to molds, now a range. I think we're up to like 6 or 7 molds, with a few more on the way, and just being able to take those pieces and like have them everywhere has just been so valuable. And it's really like made decisions a lot easier too. Like when you can actually have that framework in place and being like, no, this is what, you know, the packaging looks like, and this is, you know, what it does. It's super easy to then multiply that over all the different packaging, even if they're not all in boxes. You know, I've been able to implement pieces of them on bags and labels and stuff like that. And so it's definitely worth the time and energy to develop that and to really put some forethought behind it.
I love that. So you've been able to take the brand that we created with you and scale that.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it takes away the guesswork. And
Yes.
now you have the congruent, consistent experience for your customers that's consistent with the identity of your brand. Because like we were talking about, you know, there's so many things about that packaging that I love that you brought up, is that it's not just a pretty box, right? It has the mantra of Crown Maid on it. It has use this hashtag to be featured. It has follow us on social. It has here's a QR code that you can scan that'll take you to a YouTube channel that has tips for you in using these resin molds and in pouring resin. You know, it has, you know, be part of our Facebook community. It has all of these things incorporated in it, which I just love the way that we were able to build that for you. Because like you said, when people came to you through Amazon initially, they didn't know there was a real person and a real business on the other side.
Right.
You know, and now not only do they have a beautiful, fun unboxing experience, which is certainly part of it, but they have this introduction to Crown Maid as a company with so many resources available to them right through the packaging. What would you say to that?
Yeah, it's definitely lent itself as just a way to add value. And you and I both know like money follows value, and it is just all about that and setting ourselves apart. And, I'm always looking for ways to add to it as well. If I grab, somebody else's products, or it doesn't even have to be in the same industry, and I see, I'm always looking to see kind of like, okay, how did they word that? And how are they calling their action for social, or what are they giving in return? And stuff, and just thinking, okay, probably next work on like the insert cards and like more of the pamphlet side, and what would that look like? And so there's always more with it too. And I think that it lends itself to that there is effort put behind, and that we want to be and create a community, and like you are more than just a customer, but you're a member of a powerful group of people that that we're here to serve. And hey, I'm one of you too, and so, and just kind of getting to know that personal aspect of it. I think we all know the power of a personal brand. And I think it gets super interesting kind of doing that with physical products, because it's not like your personal brand where you're an influencer for other people's products, but you're trying to essentially create a personal experience for a brand. And I don't necessarily even envision myself being the face of it all the time, but I certainly need to be in these early years of it. And so I think it just lends itself having those touch points, and especially I think it lends to price point. Okay, so it's like my products are priced on the higher end of the spectrum in my industry, and so I need them to know that money is well spent, because of like everything that happens with it too. Like, not only is your product the product higher quality, and hopefully you feel like you got your money's worth, but that there's this whole like effort and support behind it, and not just, well, here you go, good luck, like I hope you figure it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's like the service aspect, I think, is what I'm trying to say. Like, the packaging lends itself from a service point of view as well, which is super valuable.
So now you have a product based and a service business in a way.
In a way, yeah.
And it demonstrates, like you were saying, that it's not just a standalone product.
Right.
But there's an infrastructure to it. Like, this is a whole entity that's here to support you in your creative endeavors.
Right. Exactly.
I just think that's so beautiful. Well, I want to be sensitive to our time. Before we go, what would you say to the business owner who has an idea that has been rolling around in their brain, right? And maybe like you, they said, I can't make money with coasters, right? Or whatever it is. Maybe it's, maybe it's a passion project. Maybe it is just something that they've been considering releasing in the world. And I love your story, because you are one of the people that you serve, right? And I just think that's so powerful. So for anybody who also has maybe something that they love to do, that they say, I wish that this existed in the world because it would help me, and I know it could help other people. But they have been hesitating, or like, I don't know. What would you say to them right now?
Yeah, I think just trust what you're seeing, like trust the gap that you're feeling. And I think, if anything, one thing that's been coming to mind lately is I don't really want to live with regret. So I'd rather try something now, and then if it flops, it flops. At least now I know. Versus 20 years down the line wondering, or somebody finally does what I had in mind. I'm like, I had that idea like 10 years ago, and But I think, if anything, it's such a level playing field right now to be able to test product ideas. Like, it's never been more accessible to be able to design and source products, whether you want, and no matter where you want to design and source from. Like, if you're one of somebody who's like, what, I really don't want to source from China, I want to source locally, but maybe you source from China to see if it's viable, and then you transition to sourcing locally, right? And there's so much knowledge and guidance out there to be able to at least go a step further. Like, instead of keeping the idea in your head, like, figure out how to search the keywords in different places and get an idea of what is out there. Do a little bit of market research, like really basic. You don't have to come up with a business plan and figure out all your investment schemes and stuff like that. I mean, we invested $3,000, I think was like the original, thing. That's all we did to start with. And I think that if you can just do a little bit each day to kind of figure it out, go a little bit further, there are stories and other testimonies of people like me who have had an idea or handmade a successful product and then thinking, okay, I really need to get this mass manufactured now, and have made the shift and successfully done that. And so I would definitely encourage you to push a little bit further on that. Don't keep it in your head, but actually like bring it out on paper and start looking at some things and see how far you get. You never know.
That's so good. Yeah. And that goes from, well, I don't know how this could work, to, well, how could it work? Which is a powerful mindset shift. And like you said, when you start to ask those questions, it's when you get those answers.
Definitely.
Well, Helen, thank you again so much for being with us on the Brand Boss Show today. What is the best way for people to connect with you and with Crown Maid?
Yeah, you can definitely check us out on Crown Maid. Loves to hang out on Instagram. So it'll be at Crown Maid with an underscore on there. And you can check out the website at crownmaid.com. And yeah, just send me a DM on there. I'd love to know if you heard this and what you thought.
Awesome. And I will put all of those links in the show notes as well. Well, we hope you found great value in today's episode. I'm sure you did. I hope that if you have, like Helen, had an idea that was rattling around in your brain, this gave you some encouragement to start to look into how could this happen, and just go for it, even if it's awkward before it gets elegant, because sometimes until you try, you really never know. And please share this with somebody you know who needs to hear what we talked about today. It would mean the world to me, and I know Helen also, if you would do that. And you can follow us on the Brand Boss Show on Apple Podcasts. Hit that little plus sign so that you're following us. And you can continue to hit the subscribe button, which still exists on every other podcast platform. We'll catch you on the next episode. Keep rocking.